Hello, and welcome to Music Maps, the Rock and Roll Book Club podcast. In each episode, we use a place as a jumping off point for a conversation about music, anywhere from the obvious to the obscure.
Don, welcome to the Music Maps podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to start, because I'll forget at the end, I want to start right up to date. So last couple of years, you released your album Out of Sync, and I've been listening to the lead track on that, Out of Sync. And
what about the rest of it?
The rest of it is good. Listeners, go and buy Don's album. But no, it was just the opening track, Out of Sync. And these lines: now because of the economy, you're living with your mum. It's hard to be a rebel, but you get your washing done. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this lately. What the fuck's happened? Kids can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford to go to university. Or if they do, they're going to come out with 60 grand worth of debt. So reading your book, what I'm struck by is we were financially poor. You didn't have a pot to piss in.
Right.
Or you did. It's in the book, ladies and gentlemen. There's an instant where that pot gets spilled. Anyway, I'll leave you to read the book, which you should do. But we were culturally rich, weren't we? We didn't notice how poor we were because everyone else was poor. No one went on holiday. No one had a flash car.
That's right. We didn't, had nothing to relate to. We didn't have any rich friends. We were like, I wish we could do what they did. We were all in the same boat, as you said, or on the same street at least.
And the thing, though, that strikes me is you make the most of this because everything you've done in your life and where you've been, placing yourself, has allowed you to live this incredibly rich cultural life by dint of your own efforts. And one of my worries, I just want to get this out of the way, is that it's much harder for kids these days. Not impossible, someone's going to find a way, but it's so much harder. But I just thought that would be, in my head, a good way of introducing, getting to what we're going to talk about. So today...
Well, listen, just to follow up on what you're saying, I mean, I'm making a joke in the lyrics of my songs, but there's a serious point there because not only is it difficult for young people to survive, the economy is having a devastating impact on the quality of art. I mean, you can't take a risk now.
No.
You've got to do shit that's going to get you paid.
Yeah.
And consequently, everybody's playing it safe. So I think the only way forward really is to have new values. You've got to come up, find new ways of not only doing things, but what you're willing to... what you really want out of life. You know what I mean? Do you want to walk on a red carpet and be on a Video MTV Awards, or do you want to be able to do something you enjoy and make a living out of it, which to me is a result. I'm rich, I'm fucking loaded. Not financially, but I make a living doing something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I'm not that much up my arse that I forget what most people have to do to earn a crust these days.
And that's what I got from that song, and I found that song particularly inspirational. But also, it's a wise song because it's a man who's lived a rich life, and you're just reflecting back.
So, but having different values, as I just explained.
Yeah. So we're here, and we're going to talk today. I mean, there's too much about Don Lett's life to talk to do justice in an hour-long podcast. But we are. I want to again get this out early. A couple of years ago, Don released his memoir, There and Black Again. Fabulous book, and it came out last year in paperback. And if you haven't already read this book, I would urge you to do so because it is fantastic. And we're going to touch upon some of the stories in this book today. But because Don has, lived this incredible life, we're not going to be able to cover every aspect of it. So
that's what the book's for.
Exactly.
But got to leave some stuff in the book.
But today...
And don't forget, I might also get this out of the way while I'm here, the film Rebel Dread, which I can't stand, but it's out there if anybody wants to fill in the gaps of what I am about.
But for those who are uninitiated, we think this is maybe a basic primer to Don Lett. And we're going to start... As it's Music Maps, we're going to be focusing a little bit. Don's going to be a guide to South London, to Brixton, and to Forest Hill. I get the two mixed up. Not the one in East London. So Don's going to give us a guide, and then we're going to come up to the King's Road. So that's our geographical locus, and we're going to cover punk rock, and we're going to cover the Clash, and maybe the Slits as well. So we're going to see where we go. So your association with class manager Bernie Rhodes goes back to your time at Antiquarius and Acme Attractions on the King's Road. Did your links with the rest of the band start there as well?
Absolutely. At that time, I was managing this shop, as you just pointed out, Acme Attractions, with, I've got to say, a lady called Jeanette Lee, who now...
Rough Trade.
Okay, co-owns Rough Trade with Jeff Travis. And back then we were an item, let's put it that way. And Bernie used to basically stroll into the shop, because he had a stall in the Antiquarius for a short while, but he'd given that up. And basically we had Acme Attractions in the basement of Antiquarius, and you had Vivian and Malcolm's shop further down the road, which was called by then... I think it was called Sex by then. I can't remember. It was too fast to live.
Names, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It kept changing its name. And Bernie really was a good friend of Malcolm and Vivian's. In fact, he says he was responsible for helping them find John Rotten, as he was known back then. But he was instrumental in that he and Malcolm were like the cultural intellectuals. You know, they were that much older than the rest of us. So they could see that what we were doing at that moment, they could put it in a kind of ongoing dynamic and a context. You know, we thought we were like doing something that's never been done before.
Yeah.
But they were like, well, actually, you know, look at the 68 riots and all that stuff, for instance. And they were a big help, I've got to say, and Malcolm too. You know, really interesting. I mean, Malcolm, he was a major inspiration to me, much more than Bernie, in that I met Malcolm before Bernie. When I left school, I bailed on the whole, you know, way I was supposed to go and made my way to the King's Road, Chelsea, because back in those days that was the hippest place you could go. And I stumbled into Malcolm and Vivian's shop. This is in like 1973, 74, before the words punk rock had even appeared on the horizon. And I walked into what was like this, I guess, Aladdin's cave of culture, even though it was very Eurocentric. Struck up a conversation with Malcolm, and it was Malcolm that really said to me, you know, he made me realise that, you know, if you had a good idea, you could be part of this stuff that this sort of countercultural stuff we were so enamoured with. You didn't have to be just a fan. You know, it was Malcolm and he was the one that helped me join the countercultural dots and helped me put these things into context. So yeah, I owe Malcolm McLaren big time, I've got to say.
And your brothers as well, because again, I remember from the book, the Black Panther stuff, the consciousness. I mean, you're at the right age. We're sponges, aren't we? You're absorbing all this. And
yeah,
again,
I've got to say one other little thing that, you know, I came to realise, and it was only after doing the album and the book, and actually doing a lot of these Q&As to promote the book and the film Rebel Dread. And I was thinking about what it was that made me the animal that I am today. And I realised that a large part of who I am was created by the society I grew up in. In other words, it was really racist, man. I mean, 60s and 70s were tough if you were black.
Yeah.
And you were constantly told you were nobody, you were lucky to be here, go back to the jungle and all this stuff. And I guess that made me want to prove that I wasn't the poor relation, you know, earn some respect. And I often think that maybe back in the day, if everyone had been nice to me, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Do you know what I mean? In a weird way. In the same way you wouldn't have had the blues if Africans had bought a ticket to America. Do you know what I mean?
So did the Clash share this interest in reggae?
Absolutely. I've got to clear that up too.
Was that unusual?
Not at all. I tell you why. I mean, everyone makes a big deal out of Don Lett's punky reggae party. It's not really totally true. I mean, people like Strummer, Simonon, Lydon, certainly. They knew reggae before Don Lett's came along, and I'll tell you why. It's because of Trojan Records, man.
Yep.
1968, Trojan Records set up. Same year, Enoch Powell made that Rivers of Blood speech, by the way. And it captured the imagination of my white friends, so much so that it actually was the soundtrack for the first skinhead movement. And I point out the first skinhead movement because that was the fashion one, not the fascist one. And yeah, it became their soundtrack. In fact, it was with the skinhead help that the records charted. Yep. I mean, Trojan had a shitload of chart hits in the late 60s, early 70s. And so people like your Strummers, your Simonons, your Terry Halls, you know, they were hip to Jamaican music before Don Letts came along. The people that I turned on were all the people that didn't have any interaction with black people back then. Yeah. And back then there was a lot of white people. You know, everybody was living on the outskirts. If you weren't living in Brixton, Notting Hill or Tottenham, it probably didn't have too much to do with black folks, you know.
I mean, you said in the book, Paul Simonon's a South London neighbour. Yeah. And you say in the book, you know, he said to you one day, yeah, I was walking down the road and every single house there's reggae music coming out of it.
Yeah, I tell you, I mean, basically the white working class kids picked reggae as their soundtrack for a rebellion because don't forget, you know, white working class kids, you know, they've been getting their rebellious fix from black music way before that. You know, the mods and all that stuff were all listening to kind of American R&B. I mean, I think the big difference with that influence and the reggae influence is that reggae, you know, it wasn't some distant sound, like you just pointed out. You could hear it in the streets of Brixton. You could hear it coming through your walls. So it was as much my white mate soundtrack as it was mine, you know.
Was Paul the first one you met?
The Clash. You know something? I can't remember. I think...
Because you both grew up in Brixton.
Oh, yeah, I didn't meet him in Brixton. No, I met him through the whole punk rock thing, and I'm sure I saw him and Joe at some blues dance in Notting Hill, and we was eyeing up each other across the dance floor. And I was thinking, who the f*** are these white guys that's that brave to come to this place and look like that? I actually got talking to them when they strolled into Acme Attractions, as all the early punks did. Eventually, I mean, basically, anybody who was anybody in the early punk scene, if they came, they'd come to the King's Road, they'd move between Acme Attractions and Sex.
Yeah.
And they'd literally bounce between these two places.
There's a really funny bit. There's this comic scene in the book where, I mean, Don... you've had falling out with Vivienne Westwood.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because she wants to give you a job, but you don't actually want to work there because you don't really fancy all the dressing in all of the leather bondage stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm had gone to America to manage the dolls.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually spent a lot of time during the whole period hanging out with Vivienne, and we'd go to the cinema together. I remember we went to go and see Lou Reed together, and we became really quite tight. And then she eventually offered me a job, and I was like, nah, don't know about walking around in rubber gear. And then I got the gig managing Acme Attractions, and because I took it, Vivienne said I was an enemy, the traitor, because we were competition. And so much so that, in fact, when John came back from Jamaica after the Pistols had split up, I remember passing the shop and I was filming the Doors for something or another, and she came out and attacked me. She literally came out and physically attacked me, and I remember pinning her up against the wall like, please, Viv, chill, because it don't look cool, a black man and a skinny little white woman fighting in the King's Road, Chelsea, you know.
There is that funny bit, though, where you do come across, you're given a rubber sex top,
yeah.
And you say you try to get it off, and you get stuck and you're suffocating.
Yeah, nearly had a bit of auto asphyxiation there, mate. I tell you, very embarrassing.
Now you were at one of the early Sex Pistols gigs, famously the Nashville show, April 3rd, 1976, and that's a show which the 101ers, which the audience members probably are aware, is Joe Strummer's band before he joins the Clash.
Yeah, and that's when he realised they were rubbish and the Pistols and punk rock was the way to go. Literally that night.
So, had you heard of the Pistols prior to getting there?
Okay, I can't remember how I ended up there, because basically I'm working at King's Road, managing Acme Attractions, I'm playing reggae all day long, and this is like 1975, 76, and all of a sudden I start seeing these weird, funky white kids walking in the shop, who'd eventually become the punk rockers. And my girlfriend, Jeanette Lee at the time, started to get interested in all this thing that was happening. Because it was the first time a sort of white hip scene that she could relate to. Because before that, you know, the hip scene, white scene was glam rock. And she was too young for that. Anyway, what I'm basically saying is I was initially reticent to the whole thing because it was stealing the attentions of my then girlfriend. I was like, fuck them. I was cock on the block back then. What the fuck? Stealing my girlfriend's attentions. She was the one that actually took me not only to that gig, but also to the first Clash gig I saw, which was a place called the Roxy, not the one in Covent Garden. It was in Harlesden.
Yes.
So, yeah, it was through Jeanette twisting my arm slightly, because I was kind of interested, but I was too stubborn to admit it, you know what I mean? It was through her twisting my arm that I really got so involved with the scene. Because maybe, I was going to say it might have passed me by, but no, not really.
How many people were there?
Don't forget, they're both small venues, so it didn't, I mean, I don't know, maybe 500, if that, 300?
That's quite a big crowd.
Yeah.
I was surprised as well that you paid to get in. 50p, cheap.
I did.
But I was surprised because I thought, oh, you're part of that Acme sex
Who
scene.
said I paid to get in?
I think you say it in the book. Well, maybe you didn't. Maybe,
Yeah,
but it was 50p.
Yeah.
All right, so
you couldn't hold that against them, could you?
But I think you draw a contrast between the Pistols coming on stage, and you write about how Paul Cook looks like a little kid, and Glenn looks like him, and Steve looks like a builder. But Joe looks a bit out of place compared to them.
Well, he was an old hippie.
Yeah.
I mean, people forget that. I mean, well, kind of. I mean, no, he was. Joe was an old hippie. There's no denying it. He wouldn't have denied it. And then he was, right, back then, the whole 101ers thing was like this pub rock scene, which was kind of hippies, but with shorter hair. And, yeah, that gig at the Nashville is when he saw the light and realised, as he said, what did he say? Yeah, we were yesterday's chip paper or something, he says in my film, Westway to the World. Yeah.
Which I watched last night, so I can vouch for that. So did you make that same decision that night as well? You were like,
oh yeah, no, listen. When I saw the Pistols and the Clash equally, I was like, what the energy was undeniable. It was definitely something new. I mean, don't forget, I'd already, not that much earlier, 5 years before I'd seen The Who in 1971. I see them play, who I loved. And that kind of blew my mind, but that was the generation before. This was a soundtrack that was more relevant to not only my white mates, but to me as well. Because they were talking about shit that was affecting both of us. And I'm a great believer that every generation needs its own soundtrack, and there were my white mates creating their own in front of my very eyes. It was a trip.
What did you make of Joe that night? We know that Mick and Paul have gone there specifically.
You want to know something? Guess what? I don't remember seeing the 101ers that night. If Chris Salovich wasn't there and told me, yes, he remembers both, the Pistols just wiped the slate. You know what I mean? Yeah. The first time I remember seeing the Clash, Roxy Harlesden, the same night they played with Subway Sect and the Slits. Incredible lineup, incredible night.
So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Subway Sect and the Slits, because I mean, this is all happening very, very quickly. The Clash's debut single, White Riot, comes out, and then not long after, there's a 40-day White Riot tour, which the Jam are on, briefly, Buzzcocks, Subway Sect and the Slits. So how did you become involved in that?
Oh, that's easy. By this time, Acme Attractions, the owners... I didn't own Acme Attractions, I managed it with Jeanette. The owners were kind of, before punk rock happened, we were doing our own thing. Punk rock happened, and they start trying to cater to that tabloid punk rock market. I wasn't hip to that. In fact, the shop had changed from Acme Attractions to something called Boy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stand it, so I'm like, fuck this, I'm out of here. And I quit and took some money from Acme Attractions. It was about redistribution back in those days, guys. And basically gave it to the Slits to go on the White Riot tour, where I was supposed to be their manager. What a mistake that was, because trust me, those girls, totally unmanageable, hence them being the last punk band to be signed. But I went out on the road with them, filmed them, the Subway Sect, the Clash, and yeah, God, I wish I could remember all that stuff. But yeah, needless to say, it was pretty fucking wild. I think that was the one that Joe got arrested for stealing pillows or something. I can't remember. It was wild, Slits getting chucked out of hotels, thrown off the bus. They got in more trouble than any of the boy bands did.
Yeah, again, you say in the book, you're in Manchester with the Slits and trying to check into a hotel.
Oh, Barry,
she gobs on the
carpet.
And it ain't easy in a town like Manchester to find a hotel.
Way to ingratiate yourself when you're arriving there.
But the Slits terrified men. I got to say, they terrified men.
Was it the first time you'd been to most of these places?
Absolutely. Yeah, punk rock. Took me around the whole of the UK. Before that, it was just Brixton and the King's Road, Chelsea.
What sort of crowd were the gigs attracting? White Riot tour.
By the time the White Riot tour kicked off, a lot of the because when Roxy was happening, there was kind of these old students and sort of almost hippie types in the crowd. It was kind of a very weird crowd it was a transitional crowd. But by the time the White Riot tour happened, those students, those kind of long-haired students, had gone, and it was these wannabe punks and some serious people that are really being turned on by the possibility of what was unfolding in front of their eyes. Because the thing about punk is this, and the reason we're still banging on about this fucking four-letter word, is that it weren't just a soundtrack. There's this whole thing about, what was it? The Pistols played or the Clash played in the city. The next day, hundreds of bands would form, which is partially true, right? Mm. But also, a lot of people walked away from those gigs totally buzzed, man. And they wanted to be involved. They wanted to do something. So that's why you had, punk rock photographers, poets, fashion designers, graphic artists, and that's why we're still banging on about it, because it was a total subculture. It wasn't just a soundtrack.
Fanzines and all this other
the whole enabled so much energy and attitude. and creativity, you know. And I'm a product of that, because when the whole thing was kicking off, you know, all my white mates are picking up guitars, man, and the stage was like nearly full up. And I'm like, shit, I want to pick up something too. And I picked up a Super 8 camera. And it was with punk inspiration that I became a filmmaker.
Yeah.
So I owe those guys big time.
Now, White Riot, I think is well known, was written...
I tell you, see the looks I get in Brixton when I walk along singing that. All my mates are like, all right, when you're done, let's see blood clot mud.
But it's Joe's writing about the Notting Hill Carnival.
Well, Joe, yeah, he starts there, but you know, Joe's got more ideas in 2 sentences than most people have in their whole song. So he starts there, but then he goes off in all different tangents. But yeah, it was taking inspiration by what he saw at the carnival, which was...
Were you there too?
Absolutely. That's why I'm on the cover of Black Market Clash.
Yeah.
Basically, what he saw was the brothers taking things into their own hands if they were pissed off with something. And that's what he was saying, like, we got to get involved like the brothers. We're pissed off with something, we've got to get... Basically, he was talking about direct action.
You mentioned the Black Market Clash there and the famous photograph, and we'll probably link to this if people have forgotten, and they shouldn't have forgotten. But
it's a long time ago. I don't blame you guys.
But it is the wonderful picture of Don facing off, it seems, about 300 coppers. And again, at the start of the book, what I love about the book is you kind of puncture that
myth, the punch of that myth, and prove that the picture does lie sometimes. Yeah, folks, I've got to tell you that although it looks like I'm facing the cops, basically, for those that don't know, it's a picture of me facing like what looks like, you know, 500 cops. And the truth of the matter
like
is,
a gunslinger.
That's how I dressed. I wasn't styling. That's how I dressed on a day-to-day basis, my friend. It wasn't an act. But basically what the camera doesn't show is the brothers and sisters behind me about to kick off with their bricks and bottles. And truth be told, I was just getting out of the way. I didn't know there was a guy behind me taking a picture, you know, but literally. And what's interesting is, it's funny that people think, oh, Don's facing off the cops. But if you look at the picture, the black and white one, not the tinted one on the cover of the album, you can clearly see that they're looking over my shoulder, that they're looking at somebody else.
Right.
But when people look at the picture, what they see is me facing off these cops.
Worked out well for you then.
I'm a lover, not a fighter, folks.
Couldn't have done your reputation too much harm, apart from with
It
the
was
cops,
Paul's
of
idea
course.
to use that picture, by the way.
But I've said many times, we've met Don a couple of times, and again, look at the book. I don't think the guy's ever taken a bad photograph. He's the coolest motherfucker that we've ever known.
You can say it, I can't.
Did the far right try to adopt White Riot as a sort of anthem or theme
If they
tune?
did, it didn't work. I do think there was a little bit of confusion at the very beginning, but Joe quickly, you know, laid that to waste.
Was there an element of that at the gigs, or not really?
There was. I think there was a little bit. I didn't actually see too much of it. But yeah, no, there was that, you know, that sort of 70s National Front thing was causing confusion. I mean, that's why they did the Rock Against Racism gig.
Yeah.
You know.
Clear that up.
Yeah, clear that up, pin their colours to the
Definitively,
mast and let people know we ain't about that. You know.
Now, despite a premature...
I didn't go to the Rock Against Racism gig. You want to know why?
Why didn't you go, Don?
Because by that time, Jeanette had got fed up of me and she'd left me and run off with Joe Strummer. So that day I put the troubles of the world on a back burner. I was boohooing at home, my girlfriend's left me. I didn't go. Wish I did. It looked amazing. Footage is good.
Had you gone, would you have shot it? Or
I always walked around with the Super 8 back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Who did shoot it then? Just like this is
Who was it? I should know this. Jack Azan, the guys that made Rude Boy, the Clash film.
Yeah,
Rude Boy.
right.
Ah, right, okay, yeah.
So despite a premature backlash after the Clash hire an American producer, Sandy Pearlman, to work on their second album, the first single, White Man in Hammersmith Palais, dates back to a night that Joe spent with you in June 1977. So tell us about that. What did Joe make of his trip to the Hammersmith Palais?
Well, it was an education for him, because what Joe saw...
So the Hammersmith Palais was basically for reggae shows, yeah?
No, he had other shows there, but it became it became a residency for a lot of the visiting reggae artists that had come over because of the punk's interest, it has to be said.
Oh, right.
So on this particular night, what was it? It was Dillinger, Leroy Smart, Delroy Wilson. And Joe went expecting to see this kind of roots rock kind of ghetto vibe.
Yeah.
Not realising that, you know, there's a clue in the word ghetto, it's get out. So you don't aspire to, you know, he was expecting the stage to have like corrugated iron and barbed wire and shit on it. But it was more like Las Vegas and Showtime and sequins and stuff like that. And Joe was very thrown by that, you know. Hence lines like turning rebellion into money and things like that, because he starts off at Hammersmith Ballet and ends up with Adolf Hitler, right? Remember what I was saying at the top of this about him starting one place and ending up somewhere else? But basically, I think he was talking about, the commercialization of something that we really believed in, you know, music and rock and roll, in a way that only Joe could. But it was a very special night for me, and that song, I guess in a way my favourite Clash song, because, you know, we went together that night.
It's right up there for best Clash song, for sure.
I've never noticed before. Don has in his wonderful shed a poster of that show.
We'll try and post a picture of this poster.
Well, it's a famous picture because you often see there's a black and white picture of some corrugated iron, and they've got this poster.
That's right.
I
think Linda McCartney took that picture, I heard. I think you're right. Yeah.
What I hadn't noticed previously, this show started at midnight and went until 6 a.m.
Oh, well, there we go.
And here we are recording.
That's what he says, midnight is how song starts,
Oh,
right?
yeah, midnight. And here we are at 7 o'clock, and I can't conceive being up until 6 o'clock these days.
For the London Calling video, the band travel on the Thames on a boat. Was it a difficult shoot?
Well, that's one way to put it. What really happened was they come up with a song called London Calling, and there's a line in it, live by the river, and wasn't a quantum leap to think, okay, let's shoot it by the river, you know. And it was my idea the guys aren't on a boat, they're on a pier, but it was my idea to put the cameras on a boat so we could get these sort of shots drifting by. Thing is, it was only my second video, and I didn't know what the I was doing, to be honest. And I'm going to do a shortened version of this, but by the time I'd worked out, it was supposed to be shot in the daytime, but by the time I'd worked out all the logistics and that, it was pissing down with rain with night. Guess what? Best luck I could have ever had.
Magic.
Because it created an atmosphere that the budget could never have afforded.
No.
So it was really a classic case of punk rock turning problems into assets. You know, because before that video, and the very first video I made was for Public Image, for Public Image, the debut single.
First song.
Before that, I was running around, it was just me on a Super 8 camera. Now I found myself in a situation, back then you had to be in part of the union. So I'm sitting on a set with like 10 guys I've never met in my fucking life. You know, so it was serious education for me.
There's a pattern throughout the book, actually, of you being on these shoots, and you're the boss with a lot of kind of white guys with the tech.
Yeah. I mean, thank God it's changed now, you know. Back then, it was strictly white man.
In 1980, the 16 Tons tour is followed by the non-album single Bank Robber. And with it comes another video made by yourself. How did this shoot in Lewisham go for Bank Robber?
You mean when we were running around with the roadies dressed as... Oh, yeah. With a swag bag and mask over their face.
Yes.
Well, inevitably end up with cops shutting us down, you know what I mean? But everything was done on the fly back then. We just took chances. And it was quite easy to kind of... Because the video wasn't a major thing back then. You know, the cops would come along and like, oh, yeah, mate, sorry, I'm a student. We're making a student film. And like, well, you shouldn't really
So
be
there
doing
were no
that,
permits or anything?
None of that. None of that.
You do travel to New York with The Clash in the summer of 1981 for what ends up being a 17-show run at the Bonds Casino in Times Square. How keen were The Clash, the band, to break America? And was this part of that?
Listen, I'm going to tell you now that I wasn't part of the inner sanctum, so I don't like to second-guess the guys.
Yeah.
But you can use your own intellect to realise that, back then that was some kind of benchmark. No one had done it, and I'm sure they wanted to crack America and get real and take this thing beyond, further than the end of their street. You know, they didn't want to be selling coals to Newcastle.
The shows sound amazing. Can you remember some of the support acts that were on the bill?
Yeah, by the reaction of the crowd. I mean, for instance, hip-hop hadn't really taken off. It was just happening in the Bronx and places in Queens. And the Clash had picked up on the emerging sound and asked Grandmaster Flash to do a night. And the crowd went crazy saying, no, we don't like this shit, and started throwing bricks and bottles. I remember Mick having to come out and to say to the crowd, how dare you disrespect
Was the audience
our guests?
there different to what it had been in England.
I tell you what they were. They're a rock and roll crowd. Because the truth of the matter is, although
It's more of a
Clash were a
mainstream
punk
crowd.
band, they were perceived in America as they were picking up on the rock aspect of their outfit.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. So by that point,
Yeah.
it's a different audience to on the tours in England.
absolutely.
It's mostly punks,
way
yeah.
different, and
Yeah.
kind of backward too.
But yeah, I mean, some of the support: Suicide, Bo Diddley, Grandmaster
Remember Bo
Flash,
Diddley's Suicide was crazy. I mean, I
Sugar
remember
Hill
seeing them play
Gang,
over here.
Lee Perry, The Fall. I mean,
I don't remember that.
Allen Ginsberg.
Yeah, Ginsberg I remember because the
Incredible
crowd didn't like
selection
all that.
of people
Paul wasn't
there.
mad on Allen Ginsberg.
17 nights end up doing at the casino.
There was
Back to back, by the way.
Yeah.
and there was a bit of a mishap, wasn't it, with some of the film? Didn't Bernie Rhodes?
Oh man! Well,
Balls it
basically,
up.
we filmed the whole event, and you know, no mean feat. 70 shows back to back.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, they sacked Topper, and then Topper says, "Well, if you're going to sack me, you can't bloody release the film." So they put the negs into storage. Bernie doesn't pay the bill. Negs get destroyed. Fortunately, I had some bits of what you call the cutting copy. You know, yeah, it's a film term, guys, under my bed, and I have found some bits and pieces that I've eked out over the years.
And some of that's in the Westway to the World film, yeah?
Bits of it are in the Westway. Isn't there an extra in the Westway, like a 20-minute extra about Bond?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I think there is. I haven't seen some of the extra things.
Yeah.
I'm really keen to see
Yeah.
because I haven't seen some of it. But yeah,
An incredible, you know, they took New York. You know, it was incredible on the news, all kinds of stuff.
Because the band stopped
Stop
traffic in
traffic.
Times
Yeah.
Square.
There's a riot in Times Square, mate. There's bits of that in. I can't remember what it's in. I'm sure it's in the Bond's extra on Westway to the World, where you saw the cops on horses chasing some of the people that tried to dress up like punk rockers. It was quite funny, actually.
And, some of the New York figures. Bob De Niro comes to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Scorsese.
Yeah, it was the. But in fact, that was the time when Scorsese was making King of Comedy.
Oh, yeah. Joe Lewis.
And that's when they did their cameo appearance in the film.
They're
which, if
actually
you
in this.
blink,
Yeah.
you will miss it.
if you go on YouTube, someone has the clip and then they slow it down so you can see Joe Strummer. But yeah, blink and you'll miss it. But it's a
I'll
real...
tell you what's really crap. So I'm a big Scorsese fan, right? So obviously I run to the cinema years later to see this film, King of Comedy. And the credits are rolling by and I'm Don Lett. I'm like, what? Don Lett? I'm like thinking...
Don Lett.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking I'm not in the film. But it was credits, so I thought, F this. Went outside and bought myself another ticket. No shit, because I was that much of a Scorsese fan. Went back in, watched the whole f***ing film again, realised that the person that they thought was me was actually the Clash's roadie, a gentleman called Ray Jordan. And not only was I not in the film, they actually spelt my name wrong in the credits. It's not Don Letts, it's Dom, D-O-M, Letts. Close, but no cigar, folks.
Credit on a Scorsese film, though.
Yeah, no, really, you know.
But you and Scorsese...
I don't care now.
Do you like King of Comedy?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I love
Brilliant.
it. I love it. Yeah,
Sandra Bernhard, and it's brilliant.
yeah, it's fantastic. It's not one of his more famous films, but it's always been one of my.
Hey, the true sign of genius is inconsistency, folks. Trust me.
But you and Scorsese, I think you've had previous, haven't you?
I'd met him before.
Yeah.
Good segue. So Scorsese is a music fanatic, and especially music documentaries.
Yeah.
And going back again now, folks, to I can't remember, it must have been 1977 or early 78, where he asked for a private screening of the punk rock movie, my very first film. And sure enough, he came to the studio that I was working out of in Notting Hill. And back then, I'm not the mouthy mother person I am now. And he arrived, he screened the film. I think, if I remember rightly, I said, "Oh, thanks for coming, man." And I think that, I'm not shitting you, I think that was it. Because he wasn't, you know, when he's not on set like talking a million miles an hour, he's a really quiet and reserved kind of guy. But it was the briefest of meetings that, you know, God knows what impression it left on him. It certainly left a big one on me, you know.
Yeah, well, I say if you're a fan, I mean, what had he already done by then? Mean Streets, The Godfather...
Mean Streets,
Taxi Driver,
yeah.
So The Clash returned to New York towards the end of 1981 to work on their Combat Rock album, and in 1982 when they played Shea Stadium with one of your old favourites, The Who. Now, presumably, as a Beatle fan, you jumped at the chance to film the Clash at Shea Stadium.
I jumped at any chance to film the Clash. It doesn't matter where they were. If it was in a club, a small club, Shea Stadium, or in a desert in Texas, because they were that dynamic, man. It was a pleasure to point the camera at them. But obviously, playing in the Shea Stadium had a big, resonated. I tell you what resonated more was the people that turned up backstage, because that's where I met Andy Warhol.
Yes.
And freaked him out when I told him there was acid in the cake, and he left. There wasn't acid in the cake. I was just being a dick. I was just being a dick. But they were incredible shows. Although I remember distinctly, with support acts, quite often the major acts don't give them the same level of volume and all that stuff. So, and I think the Dolls played as well, if I remember right. Or David Johansen, didn't they? Yeah. Is either Dolls or David? Yeah, they played earlier, before the Clash.
I think it would have been Dave Johansen.
So, yeah.
Were the Who crowd into the Clash? Or was it...
No, I can't remember if Rockin' the Casbah and Should I... Yeah, no, those tracks were out by then. Yeah. What am I talking about? Clash had made a big impression on the States because of the videos.
I think the video for Should I Stay is filmed
there.
Out there.
But the other stuff that I'd done earlier, because don't forget MTV had launched by now.
Yeah.
And they definitely had made a big impression, if not with London Calling. What was
Early
it?
MTV.
Yeah. The Call Up I did as well.
Yeah, from Sandinista.
Yeah. I think Rockin' the Casbah came after that, yeah.
So we're going to fast forward to July 1998. So you finally get the call to put the band story on film in what becomes Westway to the world. So how do you go about making that?
Style and panache.
That's all we need to say, really. I mean,
what do you mean?
We could have guessed
obviously,
that.
I had a relationship with the guys, and so they trusted me. And I think that's going to, and also, I think they knew that I wasn't going to set them up,
Yeah.
Which is a good thing and a bad thing, I guess, because maybe somebody that was a bit more investigative might have got more out of them. I don't think so, to be honest. They wouldn't have done the bloody film. I mean, for instance, I didn't actually sit down and do the interviews. A friend of mine, an author and journalist, Mal Peachy, actually sat and asked the questions because they knew me. If I sat down and asked them a question, because they knew I knew half the answer, they wouldn't give me the full answer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean? So, and it was a sensitive time for them, man. I mean, this opportunity that they had was now behind them. And it had been messy, obviously, I mean, yeah, because I'm trying to remember when we did it. What year did we do it? 2000 or something?
It came out in 2001. It was...
Okay, right, now, so I'm just lining up my ducks.
2001, 2002.
So obviously the Clash had broken up. Joe was doing his thing, Mescaleros and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mick had some serious success with BAD. A testament to Mick's talent, I've got to say, But it was sensitive. I think you can see it in the film. Joe ends up tearing up, doesn't he? Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And for them to just...
Because they all film...
I'll tell you what it is. It's that scene in I Could Have Been a Contender.
Yeah.
It's
on
that.
On the waterfront.
On the waterfront, it's that. I Could Have Been a Contender. It's that. The whole film is that. Which you know what I'm talking about.
So they all film their parts separately. Was there
they
still...
could. That was quite... Oh, no, they're all talking to each other and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Everyone,
but obviously...
everyone got on by that point.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to end the documentary with the departure of Mick Jones? The Clash.
Because that's when the Clash finished.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very
it's got
true.
the other lot on the other lot called Clash Mark II. There you go. Enough said. And they, I always remember going to see the Clash Mark II when they were singing that song "We Are the Clash." I'm like, that's a question. And then didn't they? Yeah, and they had to get like 2 or 3 guitarists to replace Mick, which didn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Having said that, Cut the Crap, Straight to Hell makes buying that album worth it.
Yeah.
Shame you can't cut the crap and just keep the track.
Was it hard to convince anyone to take part in Westway to the World?
I mean, by the time they sat in those chairs, I guess they would have spoken to each other and, yeah.
What about Bernie Rhodes?
I asked Bernie to do it. He didn't want to do it. It was stupid. I thought it was really stupid. He wrote himself out of the story. Yeah. Really stupid, because Joe loved him. There's no denying that. Joe loved him. Mick, not so much, And Paul liked him too. They,
What about
Well,
top
it was
hat?
when they asked Bernie back that was the sort of final straw, really, for Mick, really.
Do you get any sense, in the years that have passed, have you heard, I mean, does Bernie Reed kind of feel he's made the wrong decision in not appearing in that? Do you feel the opportunity went, or is it just...
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't begin to second guess Bernie. He was a particularly strange person. But I learned a lot from him, I've got to say. You know, he'd have this, like, really weird, surreal ways of coming at things.
I think the fact that we know him, we associate him, obviously, with The Clash, because he was such a big, influential figure. I mean,
And
I
tell you what, he made you think.
Yeah.
He made you think. He made you question what you were doing, why you were doing it. You know, you had to sort of justify the space you occupied, man. Otherwise, you were baggage.
Yeah.
And he constantly made you keep checking yourself.
What about Topper Hedden? Because he'd been off
Topper.
the radar for a while.
What about him? Clash couldn't have been the Clash without Topper, man.
No, but in terms of participating in Westway,
I think he's not in it much, but he's brutally honest, Topper.
Brilliant. He's
and I
brilliant
love
when
that.
he's in it, though. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that brutal. You know, he's more honest than the others in a way. You know, because
Yeah.
Topper, that's just the way he is. You know.
The film wins a Grammy, which is brilliant. But
Yeah, but you know, I've got to be honest. Put that in perspective. Joe had died just before.
Yeah,
And I always, when I got
so
it,
you
I
think
mean,
it's
they
a
gave me a Grammy.
sentimental vote?
Absolutely. When I took it, I said, "Look, this is obviously for Joe," you know, but I'll take it home anyway.
But at the ceremony, the organisers aren't made aware that you're actually in attendance. Is that right?
Yeah. No, it's funny you should say that. I forgot that. Yeah, I actually went and sat at the very back because I'm like, no fucking chance am I going to get this thing.
Right, okay.
Not thinking it's not about you, Don. It's about the Clash.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Oh no, the Clash." They announced the winner, and they're like, "Unfortunately, the director." And I'm like, "Oh yeah!" And I ran all the way from the back, all the way up to, which is a major no-no because everything's planned to the nth degree at the Grammys, you know. And I took the thing and said that it was for Joe, you know. And I'm really privileged to work with those guys. They supported me because after I did London and Calling, they blew up really big, and they could have really chosen any of the big name directors back then, including your Scorseses.
Yeah.
But they stuck with me, man, and owe them big time.
I mean, for many people, The Clash are the only band that mattered. So how was their legend grown, and were they the only ones who believed it from the start?
Oh man, what kind of question is that? I always like who was
the
it?
one
Mark,
Simon
the one that
wrote
was
down,
written at 5 to 3 last night when I was
Mark
finishing
P.
this off.
What is it? Mark P. had this great statement. Mark P. who
Yeah.
created
Alternative
Sniffing Glue.
Tea.
And Mark P. said the Pistols would make you want to smash your head against the wall, but the Clash, they give you a reason. And I think that sums it up really well. You know, the Pistols kick-started and gave
He's a
everybody...
clever fella, Mark, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it helps when you're putting out a fanzine, yeah.
We had him as a guest.
Sniffing Glue.
Yeah.
Not long ago.
Last year. I must admit, I'd not paid much attention to alternative TV for a while, and I went back and listened to it. Head of the game, weren't they? They were great.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting sort of post-punky reggae thing, part of that punk, you know. Didn't do anything for me, I'll admit.
All right.
But not the point, really. You know, not really the point.
Right, Mark, true or false? You decide. Joe Strummer was born in Ankara, Turkey.
I believe this to be correct.
Yes, his dad was a diplomat, a civil servant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he grew up in quite a few different places before settling in the West Country for a while before moving to London to be in the Clash. So there we go.
Very good book about Joe Strummer by friend of the book club, Don
Chris
Lett's friend,
Salowitz.
Chris
Yeah.
Salowitz. Redemption Song. Excellent. The last word, I think, on Joe Strummer.
Joe Strummer and Topper Hedden were arrested in a hotel in Newcastle on the 1977, I think the White Riot tour, I'm not 100%. They were arrested for stealing pillowcases. True or false?
Sounds like another one of those curveball ones. I'm guessing here because I don't know. I'm thinking it's probably true, but pillowcases, possibly. I'm thinking other hotel items, but I'm saying it's true.
It is true. What were they going to do with the pillowcases?
Were they going to nick a load of other things and stick them in the pillowcases, or wear them as masks? I don't
Maybe
know.
they wanted them for the tour bus.
Yeah,
It could be
I
any
can
number
imagine,
of reasons.
I don't know where they stayed, but I imagine back almost, 50 years ago, hotel accommodation was a lot more basic than what we get now. I mean, we love a travel lodge. We like a Premier Inn, don't we? They didn't have that in 1977.
No. There we go. Third one. Which of the following songs does not mention a member of the Clash or one of their inner circle? Walk Out to Winter, Aztec Camera. Punky Reggae Party, Bob Marley. Gangsters, The Specials. I Contain Multitudes, Bob Dylan. Tear-Stained Letter, Richard Thompson. Or Death Threats by Throbbing Gristle. One of those does not mention anyone associated with the Clash. The others all do.
It's a great question. The only one I know with any certainty, of course, is Bernie Rhodes knows, don't argue. So I'm going to go for Bob Dylan. I'm going to go for Bob Dylan.
True, yeah. He does mention
Sure guess.
Indiana Jones in that song.
Really?
And lots of other cultural figures. So it could easily have fit in there. But yeah, Bob Dylan, I Contain Multitudes is correct.
There was sad news this week that of the death of Johnny Green, the legendary Clash road manager, friend of Don Lett's, friend of John Cooper Clarke. We never got when John Cooper Clarke was doing his incredible book. He was doing dates with Johnny Green. We never managed to get them. But those books, his book on being on the road with the Clash, I remember reading years and years and years ago. Really, really very good. So sad, R.I.P. Johnny Green.
At the end of each episode, we each recommend something you've liked for a long time, or a recent discovery. Mark, I'm assuming you've got lots ready as usual.
Well, it's been Oscar week, so I'm planning on going to the cinema and seeing lots of these films that I never managed to see on release. But not an Oscar film, but I did go and see The Last Showgirl, starring Pamela Anderson. Jamie Lee Curtis, and the guy, what's his name, Dave Bautista from
WWE,
Guardians of the Galaxy, and loads of other things. A really, really great film. I mean, you'd like it because you're visual, kind of saturated film style, set in Las Vegas, and just extraordinary performances from, especially Pamela Anderson. Performance of vulnerability. So that was really good, and it was only about 88 minutes, so passes very quick.
Your kind of length. I once walked past Batista in a department store in Las Vegas, and he was one of the larger men that I have seen in the flesh. There you go.
Yeah, he's great, and the character he portrays is different from the character that he is in Guardians of the Galaxy.
He's made a very successful transition from professional wrestler to actor, and there's quite a few of those now. You've got The Rock and John Cena too, who are now all three of them are now getting serious roles in films.
So people may be aware, may not be aware, you're a big WWF fan. Who's the next crossover star then? Who's going to follow John Cena and The Rock? And do you watch the female wrestling as well? Is there a star in the midst?
There's a lady called Sasha Banks who was in WWE, and she was in The Mandalorian. And I didn't recognize her at first, and then I realized it was her. But the days of wrestling being dismissed, because you learn a lot of the skills you need for acting by doing that. There's a wrestler called MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. He's in AEW, so he's not in WWE, he's in another federation, but his skills on the microphone talking are as good as anyone's ever been, pretty much. So I think he would be a fantastic transition into acting. MJF is the name of the wrestler.
It's not MDF.
No.
Okay. It would be
Not
if he was
far off,
British. If he was British, he'd be MDF, wouldn't he?
I'm going to recommend, from those Oscar-winning films, I would have probably gone with Dune, would have probably been my choice for the best film. The Brutalist was good too, maybe a little bit long, but I'd probably have gone with Dune. I'm going to give you a non-recommendation. I watched the latest Captain America the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely horrible. Absolutely appalling. Harrison Ford's in it. So Han Solo turns into a enormous red Incredible Hulk. But I just couldn't see what the point of it was. So yeah, I didn't really. And also they kind of teased bringing in the Avengers. And then at the end in the post-credit scene, I was expecting one of the Avengers. and it was just nothing. So yeah, really disappointing, really boring. I would not recommend that.
Now, Simon, we've got some really exciting book events coming up.
Yeah.
It's starting this next week. If you're listening to this on Saturday, the 8th, 9th of March, next week, on Tuesday, the 11th of March, we have the wonderful, amazing Angela Yeager. She's going to be in conversation with Gina Birch of the Raincoats about her book, I Feel Famous, Punk Rock Diaries, 1977 to 81.
She was friends
book.
with The Clash, so it
Friends
ties,
with The Clash.
ties right into this
Pig bag.
episode.
Yeah, incredible.
She came to London as a teenager and became friends with The Clash, so it's an interesting
Amazing,
story.
beautiful book, full of kind of drawings and loads of kind of flyers and things. It's incredible. So we're doing that on Tuesday at Mother's Ruin in Walthamstow. 2 days later, slight change of scene, change of style. We've got Alan Edwards. Alan Edwards, for a long time, 30 years, was Bowie's PR. He also worked with the Rolling Stones, with Amy Winehouse, the Spice Girls. Again, another incredible book. He started off as a rock manager, working with some incredible people at the time of punk. He's at the Blitz factory in Walthamstow. And that's selling out really quickly. So if you haven't got a ticket, there's only about 5 or 6 tickets left. Be quick on that. And then in weeks following, we're very excited. So we've got some brilliant stuff. Kate Mossman, brilliant Kate Mossman, writer for The Word, for New Statesman. She's got her book, Men of a Certain Age, which is a collection of her articles for those magazines I've just mentioned, where she interviews all of the biggest rock stars on the world and kind of has some considered thoughts about that. So we're looking forward to getting Kate. She's going to be in conversation with Alexis Petridis, the chief pop critic of The Guardian, because that's the sort of caliber of person we get to do these things, isn't it, Simon?
Only the best. Only the best.
And then other things to look forward to. What have I forgotten, Simon? We've got John Higgs, although that's not on sale yet.
Doctor Who.
John Higgs, Doctor Who, yeah. Exterminate, Regenerate. Look
Best
out
theme music of any TV or film ever. Doctor Who has to be
absolutely without a doubt. So we've got him, and I've missed something out. Haven't I? What have I missed out? Oh, of course. Maybe I'm amazed.
John Harris.
Yeah, another great friend, another Guardian writer, the great John Harris, formerly of Select and Enemy and all of that stuff. But he's done this incredible book. His young boy is autistic, and this is a story about he and his son have bonded over music, and it's quite a profound book. It's a very important book, and many of us have been on the journey with autism, and therefore this is something that's close to our hearts here. So that combination of music and something perhaps a more important topic than what we normally deal with. So that John is in Walthamstow Trades Hall on the 24th of March. And before that, on Sunday, we're going to slip this one in. Another comedian, Robin Ince, the famous Robin Ince, Infinite Monkey Cage, etc., is going to be talking to Julia Rayside. Julia is a journalist, a broadcaster, and she's got this incredible book. It's a novel called Don't Make Me Laugh, and it's set in the world of the London comedy circuit, something she knows very much about, and something Robin certainly knows about. And it's about how, it's some of the dodgy stuff that goes on, some of the kind of sexist stuff. Anyway, it's an incredible book, and it is funny, but it is a bit dark, and we're going to have a great talk with that and the usual music. And this is a Sunday afternoon thing under our Sunday Ecstasis brand. So once again, it's amazing to spend time in the company of the magnificent Don Lett. Don is out and about, always playing records, talking, making movies, being Don Lett. So check out all his socials and his web stuff. To talk to him about The Clash is just incredible. So big thanks to Don Lett for spending so much time with us and for sharing all of these stories. It's magnificent.
If you could remember to leave a review or a star rating for the podcast, that would be very, very handy for us.
And when Simon says star rating, he doesn't mean like 1 or something. Yeah,
ideally not a 2-star, but I'll leave it up to the listener.
No, we've done over a year of these things now, and we continue because you listen to them. And that's fantastic. So please continue to spread the word, continue to listen, and recommend things to us. If you've read a book, if there's somebody you think we should be talking to, people who perhaps aren't kind of on all of the podcasts, give us a shout and we'll track them down.